What's going on, guys? My name is Ted, bringing y'all a comparison today. This time comparing the Android Samsung Galaxy S3 versus the newly announced iPhone 5. The iPhone 5 got announced on September 12th, just yesterday as I'm making this video, and I thought I'd give a little bit of an analysis between the two. That way, if you're waiting out on the iPhone 5 or you just don't know whether to go Android or iPhone, maybe this can help your decision a little bit. And before I get too far into it, I want to let you guys know that these are two completely different phones, so a lot of this is going to be personal preference. But there are some things that are strictly hardware and or strictly software that I can give you guys a little bit of an edge over which one's going to be better. So I hope you guys enjoy the review. Take it at face value. If you like the iPhone 5 and you're just a really dedicated person to Apple, or if you like the Galaxy S3 and you're just really dedicated to Android, then you're going to have your opinion swayed either way. So me personally, I have the Samsung Galaxy S3, but I'm not going to let that influence my decision here. I'm going to tell you guys just the specs, and let's get into the review. So the first thing about the two phones is the operating system. This is very, very important. This is like your user interfaces as well as how the overall phone is going to look and how it's going to feel. The iPhone comes with iOS 6, which is a newly released operating system for iPhone. It comes with a lot of software improvements to a lot of their applications to fit their new screen size. And just in general, it's a very, very smooth operating system, but it's not something you can customize very well. It's one of the main things that iPhone has never let you do is really customize your stuff. So they'll give you a few settings, but Android with TouchWiz 5 and the Samsung Galaxy S3 has the Android 4.0.4, which is very customizable. Almost every single feature of your entire phone can be customized. So that's one thing. I do feel that the Samsung Galaxy S3 wins here, but if you're going to go for simplicity, the iPhone 5 always has that because it's a very simple, beautiful operating system that you really don't have to know too much about phones to really, really like. Let's move on to screen size. This is very important for some people, not as important for others. For me personally, I like bigger screen size, so the Android the Samsung Galaxy S3 wins in this at a 4.8-inch screen with 1280 pixels by 720 pixels. This comes out to 306 pixels per inch. This is a very, very good screen density. But the iPhone 5 does win this one if you're going for pixel density. This one, the iPhone 5 comes in at 326 pixels per inch, which is very, very crisp, just incredible screen. No Android device will ever have that kind of a pixel per inch ratio because iPhone always just shoves as many pixels into the screen as possible. But because of this, they also have a much smaller screen. The iPhone screen is only going to be 4 inches. It's a boost up of half an inch from their last phones. All their previous phones have been 3.5 inches, which used to be huge, but now it's actually very, very small. So they finally bumped it up to a 4-inch screen that features 1136 pixels by 640 pixels, coming in at 326 pixels per inch. Once again, very, very crisp screen, but it's also quite a bit smaller. I like the bigger screen, so in my personal opinion, the Galaxy S3 wins, but a lot of people like the smaller screen, so in their opinion, the iPhone 5 could clearly win that one as well. As far as the RAM goes, this is very important for like multitasking. It's how many applications your system can keep open in the background before it starts having to close them down. The iPhone 5 will probably come with 1 GB of RAM. It hasn't been announced yet, but the previous iPhone 4S had 512 megabytes of RAM, which just isn't very much. So considering they double it, which is kind of what we're expecting, they're going to have 1 GB of RAM. The Samsung Galaxy S3 is actually a staple for this now. They have 2 GB of RAM, which is double that of what the iPhone 5 will most likely have. I can't make judgments yet. Maybe they'll just blow us all away and put in 2 gigs of RAM, but I really don't foresee that happening. In fact, they might even keep with 512 megabytes of RAM, but I'd hope that they would improve it at least to 1 GB of RAM. But the Galaxy S3 is probably going to win that battle either way. And if you don't really care about multitasking, once again, you're not really going to care about the RAM, but it is something that, that the Galaxy S3 clearly will win at over the iPhone 5. Moving on to your storage, this is one plus that the iPhone has, is that the iPhone 5 will allow you to have 16 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes, or 64 gigabytes of storage, whereas the Samsung Galaxy S3 will only come in 16 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes. So in one sense, the iPhone 5 will win this because they give you more options, and more options is always better because the least you could do is just not accept the option. But one thing that the Galaxy S3 has over the iPhone is that they allow you to add a micro SD card, and a micro SD card will essentially you could add in up to 64 extra gigabytes of memory to your phone through a little chip that you can add inside your phone. And the iPhone 5 doesn't have this SD port, the Galaxy S3 does. So for about half the price of upgrading to the 64 gigabyte, I think it's like $200 to upgrade to the 64 gigabyte over the 16 gigabyte, you can get a 64 gigabyte micro SD card, which will boost your Galaxy S3's memory up to almost 100 gigabytes of memory, which is just phenomenally insane. And that costs about $100 versus the iPhone 5 will charge you about $200 to upgrade that. So they give you more options over the phone memory, but the Galaxy S3 will let you have it so you can have a micro SD card. If that makes sense to you, I hope it did. I'm not very good at explaining things sometimes. I kind of assume people understand me, but I hope this explained better. I'll leave a link down below to micro SD cards, so that way you can understand it better if you're still a little bit confused on that. Moving on to the top data speed, the iPhone 5 made huge advancements finally. They're allowing 4G LTE, which is the 4G network all over America. I think Sprint's getting it, T-Mobile's got 4G HSDPA, and then Verizon and AT&T have 4G LTE, which I think the iPhone 5 is only Verizon and AT&T right now. Hopefully T-Mobile will get them someday, because I know T-Mobile's dying to get them. But as for now, they have 4G LTE capable, which is the top speed over here in America. And the Galaxy S3's had that. All the Android phones have had that for about a year now. So iPhone 5 is finally catching up in that, but they are at our level now. They're finally at top speed, and they come with 4G LTE. Moving on to the camera, both phones are almost exactly the same. They both have a rear-facing camera of 8 megapixels. The Galaxy S3 has a f2.6, which is better than the iPhone's f2.4, but it's a very negatable difference. They're not really too much of a difference there, so I'd say that the cameras are exactly the same. Now the front-facing camera, the Galaxy S3 does win hardware by a little bit. It's got a 1.9 megapixel front-facing camera as opposed to the 1.2 megapixel front-facing camera on the iPhone 5. Once again, kind of negatable, but they both record in 720p, so they both record in HD front-facing camera. Both very good front-facing cameras. The Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi statistics are the same on both the phones, so I'm just going to skip that entirely. Same with GPS; they both have GPS and maps and all that kind of stuff, navigation. But iPhone 5 has a new navigation system that does not use Google Maps. I think they're trying to completely separate themselves from the whole Google situation, because Google makes Android, so they don't want to be associated with that in any way. So with iOS 6, the newest operating system for iPhone, they've actually come out with the new maps that I'm not sure how it works yet, because the phone hasn't been released yet. But apparently it's just as good, if not better. So we'll have to see till the phone actually gets released. But both of them have GPS. The next thing is NFC enabled. NFC is near field communication, so it's like if you tap, it only works with Android devices as of right now. iPhone doesn't accept it for some reason. But with iPhone or with Android devices, you can just tap two devices together and share data and share phones, or share pictures and videos, and even a YouTube video you're watching. You can just tap the back of the two phones together and share that kind of data. It comes installed in the battery, so that's how they enable NFC. But the Samsung Galaxy S3 has it, and the iPhone 5 simply does not have it. I don't know why they didn't decide to use it. It's a really cool feature, but it's something they don't have. So moving on. Next thing is the sensors. Sensor-wise, they have the exact same sensors, except the Galaxy S3 has a barometer, whatever the hell that is. I don't even know what a barometer is, but apparently we have it. So I'd consider the sensors the same. I don't think a barometer is too important, but maybe it is. I just don't know what it is. As far as your TV out goes, these are really important. iPhone 5 is really restricted to the Apple products. They want you to connect to your AirPlay and Apple TV. Very few people have the Apple TV, so if you do, it's great, but if you don't, you can't really connect to your TV at all. Whereas the Samsung Galaxy S3 is a very much more universally accepted HDMI output, so you can make your phone display on your HDMI input TV, which is really cool. Everyone's got an HDMI TV by now. HDMI is kind of the standard now. It's 1080p HDMI. Most TVs have that. If you have an older TV, like 4 or 5 years older, you might not have it, but the Samsung Galaxy S3 is more likely to connect your TV than if you have the iPhone 5, which only connects to AirPlay and Apple TV. So that's kind of a downside. As far as the size goes, the Apple iPhone 5 definitely wins in this one. Because they have the smaller screen, their phones are also much smaller. I'm not going to give you the exact millimeters because it's just going to confuse the hell out of you. They go down decimal points. But the iPhone 5 is smaller. That's basically what you need to know. It's also quite a bit thinner. It's about 1 millimeter thinner, which, considering they're only the Galaxy S3 is 8.6 millimeters thick and the iPhone 5 7.6 millimeters thick, it just keeps getting smaller and smaller. And if you really like thin, smaller phones that you can hold in your hand a little bit easier, the iPhone 5 is for you. The Galaxy S3 is quite a bit bigger, so for girls or for people with smaller hands, you're just not going to be able to hold the Galaxy S3 as comfortably as you can the iPhone 5. That's one thing aesthetically. Also, the iPhone 5 is a lot more beautiful than the Galaxy S3. The iPhone 5 is made out of aluminum and glass, whereas the Samsung Galaxy S3 feels very plasticky. That's one thing I love about the iPhone 5 over the Galaxy S3, is how the iPhone 5, they don't cut corners with aesthetics and with look and beauty, and with the materials. The iPhone 5 is hands down much better than the Samsung Galaxy S3 from that aspect. So if that's what you're going for, if you just want your phone to look great, I think the iPhone 5 is definitely for you. Moving on, another very important thing is the battery life. And the iPhone 5, they don't give the milliamp hour battery. I don't know why they don't say exactly the statistic there. They just say that it covers 8 hours of LTE. This is probably, the last phone was like, I think 960 milliamp hours, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong, so don't quote me. This phone, hopefully they put like 1500 milliamp hour battery in there. They said it was visibly longer, but they didn't go any further than that in saying, how much battery life you're actually going to get out of it. So I'm just going to assume around 1500 milliamp hour. That means they increased it 50%, which could be more, could be less. I doubt it would be more, but it could be a little bit less. Whereas the Samsung Galaxy S3, you've got 2,100 milliamp hour battery, which could easily get you through a full day of average use. iPhone 5 people, or I'm sorry, iPhone 4S people have always complained about the battery life on their iPhones. I've got all my friends at college are always having the iPhones because that's like the college phone, I guess, and they're always saying they have to charge it twice a day. My Galaxy S3, I do have to plug it in midday sometimes to give it back up to a full charge, but I can go a full day on a battery if I have power saver for the last 20% or something like that. Phones in general, I'm not going to give anyone a victory here because all the phones need to have a better battery life. I don't think that the Galaxy S3 or the iPhone 5 is going to have a sufficient battery life because they keep trying to make the phones so small, and I wish they would make them just a little bit thicker, like a millimeter thicker, and just give us more battery life. I don't know why they don't do that, but they don't. Moving on to one of the last ones here, we've got wireless charging. The Samsung Galaxy S3 actually does have wireless charging. It's QI compatible, whereas the iPhone 5 does not have wireless charging. This is kind of negatable. I don't want to wirelessly charge my phone. It costs like $80 for the wireless charge port, and I don't want to spend that. So for the most part here, that's on the same level. If you like wireless charging, if you think it's the neatest thing since sliced bread, go out and get the Galaxy S3. If you don't really give a shit, don't worry about it. Moving on to the price. The price for the iPhone 5 is going to be $200 for the 16 gigabyte. It's going to be $300 for the 32 gigabyte, and it's going to be $400 for the 64 gigabyte. This is where the SD cards on the Galaxy S3 will really save you a lot of money because it costs you basically $200 to get an extra like 48 gigabytes of memory on your iPhone 5, whereas you can go out and for probably like $50 you can get a 64 gigabyte micro SD card for your Galaxy S3, boosting your memory up to almost 100 gigabytes for about a fourth the price. So if you want a lot of memory, you should definitely go with the S3. Don't go out and pay millions of dollars for the 64 gigabyte iPhone 5. It simply is not worth it. Whereas the Galaxy S3, the price varies by the company because the Galaxy S3 is available on T-Mobile, Sprint, over in the UK, Verizon, at&t. So it varies a little bit more, but I'd say the Galaxy S3, I paid for mine $325 with the 2-year contract. So that's about what you're going to pay for it. I had an upgrade as well. So that's about the price you're going to pay for it on most networks. It's going to be about $200 and about $400 maybe at the max. Whereas the iPhone 5 is $200, $300, or $400 based on how much memory you get for it. As far as your applications go, obviously the iPhone 5 is the App Store, far superior to the Google Play Store. The Google Play Store has a lot of apps, but a lot of them don't really work too well. Whereas with Apple, the App Store at Apple, they actually have to verify every single app. So every single app that's on the market has been tested and approved by some guy over in their big corporation, and they're going to work. Whereas the Google Play Store or for the Samsung Galaxy S3, a lot of the apps just are glitchy. They don't really work too well. But there's a lot more free ones as well, and if you root your phone, you can have unlimited access to all kinds of different apps that just unlock developer powers and all kinds of good stuff. And that brings me to my last point. The iPhone is closed sourced, whereas the Samsung Galaxy S3 is open source. If you don't care about tinkering with your phone at all, or installing custom ROMs, or making your phone look aesthetically perfect, which is what I spend a lot of my time doing, I just customize the living shit out of my phone. You simply can't do it with the iPhone 5 because they're closed source. You have to go jailbreak it, and even then you don't really get too many options. Whereas the Galaxy S3, you can customize every living detail of your phone to absolute, perfect perfection, and if you want to do that at least. And they just give you so many more options. Whereas the iPhone 5, it's aesthetically beautiful to start with, but there's no settings that you can go in and really change how it looks. If you don't like tiles on your screen, you're out of luck because you have to go out and jailbreak it otherwise. So that's that. The iPhone 5 will be available starting on the 21st of this month, September 2012, whereas the Galaxy S3 is already available. You can go out and get it now. In fact, it's already been out for about 3 months. So even though, in my opinion, the S3 wins, it's already been out for 3 months. Other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the comparison, and I'll catch you all later. Bye.